It started with smoke curling against the night sky, the kind of thick, oily smoke that makes your gut twist before your brain even processes what's happening. The old wooden apartment complex on the outskirts of Dallas looked like a torch from hell. Windows shattered from the heat, alarms wailed, children screamed as neighbors pulled them away from the growing inferno. The fire danced wild and merciless, and everyone ran, everyone except one man. Ethan Walker didn't think, he just moved. 36, a single dad with grease under his nails and grief in his bones. He had learned early that the world didn't wait for permission. Lily, his 9-year-old, was his whole life. The slogan he lived by was simple: protect what's yours. When someone yelled, "There's someone still inside," Ethan ran. He didn't wait for firefighters. He didn't wait for orders. He went into the flames like a man who had already lost everything and had nothing left to fear. He found her on the floor of an apartment unit, collapsed and unconscious, smoke-black hair plastered to a face he couldn't read. He hoisted her into his arms and staggered back through the inferno. The crowd outside cheered and cried as he emerged, soot-streaked and raw. Paramedics took over. The woman coughed, breathed. Relief washed over him like rain on cracked earth. He didn't ask her name. He didn't know she was Isabella Grant until 2 days later when sleek black SUVs rolled up outside his garage. They always arrive with that silence doors opening to reveal men in dark suits, eyes like chips of obsidian. Isabella stepped out like someone who owned the air around her. Not the smoke-stained, vulnerable woman he'd pulled from the fire, but poised, composed, wearing a jacket with a crest that punched a hole in his chest. He'd seen that crest before, only once, in the nightmare that haunted him, the night his wife died in a supposed hit-and-run. The whispers back then had pointed toward a Grant-owned vehicle. He had buried the suspicion to survive for Lily. Now the world breathed it back at him. "You saved my life," she said quietly, gratitude and command braided in the same syllable. "You probably don't understand who I am." Ethan shrugged. "A life's a life. I didn't do it for names." "Names matter," she said, "because the people who targeted my building won't stop at me. By saving me, you put yourself and your daughter on their radar." That night a voice called him from a blocked number. "You should have let her burn," it breathed before the line went dead. Someone was watching. Someone already had the address. From a shadowed sedan, headlights blinked like hungry eyes. Ethan sat in the dark, shotgun across his lap, watching the hallway to Lily's room as if it were a fragile country he alone had sworn to defend. He tried to keep life normal. Lily wanted pancakes. He made them with hands that shook just a little. He smiled at her, hid the storm. But the storm didn't care. SUVs lingered too long across the street. A window camera in a neighbor's yard clicked and recorded. That recording would, in a few hours, become the spark that changed everything. Isabella came back, alone this time, wearing something small and human, a worn jacket, sneakers, no entourage. She admitted the fire wasn't an accident. Someone had been trying to kill her. She didn't say why. She didn't have to. Ethan understood the shape of danger. He'd smelled it before, when a group of armed men came in the night and Ethan fired his shotgun. Everything spun into a showdown. Molotov's gunfire, the world shrieking in a language Ethan knew by muscle memory. Isabella dove to protect Lily. Ethan killed one attacker, drove the rest away. They left a message, "She's marked. So are you." After the attack, a phone camera in the shadows clicked quietly. Someone had filmed the whole thing. Isabella clutching Lily, Ethan blazing like fury incarnate. The video, meant for intimidation, would later be the seed of something else. Exposure. Isabella wasn't just terrified. She was angry, and her anger was a veiled plea. "I can help," she said, voice stripped nearly bare. "I have resources, protection, answers." Ethan wanted nothing to do with money or favors. But protection wasn't charity. It was survival, and Lily's safety wasn't negotiable. They agreed to a temporary truce. Isabella's security detail changed the rhythm of life for a while. Surveillance cameras installed. More armored SUVs, a team that watched every approach like wraiths. The small house felt too full of eyes. Lily adapted quickly, treating the guards like stoic giants at her disposal and bossing them around with 9-year-old glee. Ethan watched her laugh and felt something like hope and something like guilt settle into his chest. Then the first headline hit the net. Local hero rescues woman in apartment firewoman linked to Grant Empire. The video from the attack had leaked, cropped, shared, sensationalized. It connected Ethan to Isabella and broadcast their names into a chorus of online fingers pointing and whispering. The leak changed the game. It brought reporters, opportunists, and a lethal kind of attention. Conspiracy blogs stitched narratives about what the Grants had done. Investigative journalists prodded, calling hotels and boardrooms. But online vitriol wasn't what scared Ethan. It was the shadow messages, bullets in the mail, a bloody glove left on his porch, threats scrawled on the plaster in a handwriting he didn't recognize. Digging into the past revealed more than Ethan had wanted. His wife's accident, once closed, reopened like a wound when a blogger with teeth found old records. The car registered to a shell company with ties to a Grant subsidiary. A repair report with a signature that matched an executive's initials. Ethan read and read until the words blurred. For a man who had kept the past at arm's length to be able to live, this was salt on the wound. Isabella watched him through all of it, expression carved of granite and something else, a tired shame. "It wasn't me," she said one midnight when they both found themselves awake, each with coffee gone cold. "If I had any say, it would have been different. But this family, they move in ways that choke. There are people who run their operations like predators who don't know guilt." Ethan's fists clenched. "Were you there? That night?" She flinched but didn't lie. "No, I wasn't there. But I didn't stop it either." Her voice cracked where pride and fear fought. "And that's why someone tried to end me. Because I started asking too many questions." His anger toward her battered his resolve in odd ways. Resentment at a dynasty that might have stolen his wife Ward with a raw, inevitable truth. She had saved his daughter's life by some strange curve of fate. And she was now wrapped up in the same hazard that threatened his small world. They decided to strike back, not publicly but surgically. Isabella had names, lists, a ledger of deals that spelled where the rot lived. Ethan had grit and local muscle, old friends willing to stand for the man who'd always fixed cars for them. They made a plan that felt like insanity. Gather proof, expose the people pulling the strings, and force the rot into the open before it crushed them. But when you poke a nest of hornets, built by men who have everything to lose, the hornets don't die quietly. One afternoon, a courier dropped a plain envelope on Ethan's counter. Inside, photographs, not of board meetings but of Lily playing in a park, Lily asleep at home, time-stamped like stitched threads of accusation. On the back of one photo was a single burned match glued with careful, cruel intent. Someone was closing in, someone with means, someone who wanted them to panic. Ethan planted the photos where he thought the press would find them, in the inbox of a local reporter who had been most persistent. The reporter called at midnight, voice trembling with the thrill of a scoop and fear. They arranged a meeting at a diner that smelled of coffee and fried dough. Ethan sat with Isabella across from one another, people around them oblivious. They handed the ledger, replicated and redacted, to the reporter, along with a narrative stitched from truth and evidence. The reporter's eyes widened. "If this is what it looks like, it's explosive," he said. It was the start they needed. Within 48 hours, the internet convulsed. The ledger surfaced on screens nationwide, a detailed stitch of shell companies, questionable accidents, hush payments. People who thought the Grant Empire was untouchable watched in unease as regulatory eyes and FBI inquiries knocked at the edges. The retaliation was swift surgical slashes meant to intimidate. A van rolled through Ethan's neighborhood one night and sprayed bullets into his garage, missing by inches. A hired driver tried to run Isabella off a bridge 2 weeks later. Each attempt felt like a belt tightening around their throats. But each failure only emboldened the journalists and lawyers who smelled blood in the water. Within the chaos, Ethan and Isabella discovered another truth: someone inside the Grants was working to dismantle the old toxic network. A mole, a person who didn't like what the family had become. Isabella knew this person by rumors. Ethan learned the name in a threat-laced voicemail that accidentally left a patch of static he could reverse engineer. It wasn't just enemies out there, there were allies in surprising places. The idea that the beast had internal fractures gave them a sliver of hope. It was in that fragile thaw that their relationship shifted. Ethan, always blunt, rough-hewn, and fiercely private, started trusting Isabella's quiet competence. Isabella, always polished and dangerous, began to see a man whose love didn't hinge on power. They shared small domestic moments, Isabella awkwardly watching Lily make a papier match volcano, Ethan teaching her how to change a tire,